Hello and welcome to Footy Classified. Tonight, exclusive details on the SCG turf debacle and Christian Petracca. Where to for him and the Melbourne Football Club. Our panel tonight, gun journalist from AFL.com.au, Cal Toomey.
Hey, Damo.
We've got a Brownlow medalist, a Norm Smith medalist in Jimmy Bartel.
Evening, Damo.
And a three-time Coleman medalist, five-time All-Australian in Matthew Lloyd.
Thanks, Damo. Jimmy and I were covering the Western Bulldogs v Sydney Swans game at the SCG on Friday night. We knew straight away, didn't we, Jimmy, that this was going to be a major story. And Damo, you have some documents tonight pertaining to this and what's become of it.
Yeah. And we'll get to that exclusive documentation in a moment, Lotto. This was the Friday night game where normally sure-footed players were losing their feet in a very dangerous way, Lotto. You're going to take a particular look at the Bailey Williams issue in a moment. But, Jimmy, this was unacceptable and it was unsafe.
Yeah, and unsafe is the key word there here. And we're just so fortunate that we didn't have any serious injuries come of it. We talk about best practice, we talk about world-class venues and conditions that our players play in and play on, and that just wasn't up to scratch. And it leaves you scratching your head. How do you actually tick that off? And, you know, we'll say, oh, well, it got ticked off and the approval. But apart from running out there yourself with football boots and testing the ground, well, what do? You just walk out on the ground and go, that looks good,
Yep.
It's grass, go ahead and play?
And it makes it even more mind-boggling when you now know, as we're about to reveal tonight, that Chris Davies of the Port Adelaide Football Club had written to both the AFL and Venues New South Wales over his concerns after his team, Port Adelaide, played the Swans there in round 6. And he flagged this prior to the game after the captain's run at the venue. He felt, and this is my take on what the situation was, that he was given a bit of lip service and then the following day put into writing. And you can see the damning statements made in this. It just wasn't just visually different, it was clearly different underfoot. It goes into detail. Whether you want to believe it or not, there was a marked difference, and then it goes on to say it was a very ordinary service. This is that game in question. The problems we're seeing here as the game unfolded were flagged by the Port Adelaide Football Club the day before, and in this correspondence with the AFL and Venues New South Wales, it was acknowledged there were some improvements needed to be made, but here we are 10 weeks later dealing with something just as bad.
And nothing happened.
Well, the curator was sent there after Chris Davies had sent it, and we have got the correspondence here to read. There's a lot of detail in it and a lot of, I suppose, denying of problems. And this was published in the Age Today and SMH. Vince Rigari, from the most recent game just played, that they were caught by surprise as to why this was happening.
I want to show an incident, and Jimmy and I said, Cal, were doing this game, and we both went, when we saw something happen. It was Bailey Williams of the Western Bulldogs, and this is one particular incident we thought this is lawsuit written all over it. So right there, from the surface, Jimmy, you and I looked at we had our hearts in our mouth going, this is ACL. And I thought of Sean Wren, remember when he slipped on a plate in the middle of the ground? I saw that surface. It was the same end, Cal, all night long, and I saw that and I thought, wow, geez, they're so lucky.
And you weren't the only one watching with some real concern around this. Fremantle coach Justin Longmuir was watching this game as well and spoke post-game after his side's performance over the weekend about the worry of his footy club.
The moment my brain goes to that's unsafe for players, I have a concern. And I went there on Friday night. I thought at times it was unsafe to play on. We can't put players out there and risk their safety if the ground's not right. So if the AFL deem it safe to play, we'll play, and I won't speak another moment of it, but I thought it was unsafe the other night.
So off the back of that, Damo, I want to know what is actually deemed as dangerous then. So look at it from the other angle, and Lloydie highlighted the Bailey Williams situation, and we were so fortunate he didn't do his knee. So tell us what is actually dangerous, because if you don't think that's dangerous, tell us what is.
Yeah, and we're going to find out this week, because that game that Justin Longmuir is referring to is scheduled for Sunday, and I think it's line ball that it actually does play.
Well, to make matters worse, of course, the Sydney forecast this week, they're expecting a deluge in Sydney, up to 100 millimetres across the next 2 days of rain, so there is significant concerns around that. Sydney remains adamant that the game will go ahead as scheduled at the SCG, but even the curator today, speaking to AFL.com.au's Nathan Schmuck, said, look, we'll have to wait to see what the AFL's grass guru has to say in the next little bit. He's almost said draft guru there.
Moving on to the Carlton Football Club, we had flagged issues there, and we had also forecast the change in CEO being brought forward from Brian Cook to Graham Wright early, and it's been announced publicly today. Robert Priestley, the chair of the club, the president of the club, not one to speak too often publicly, did so today.
Graham's going to take over on the 15th of August. So a few weeks out, we think that's the right date. It allows Brian to just finish off a few projects and commitments that he's got, and also gives us a really good opportunity for Graham utilising his expertise to just really support our footy department.
Will Michael be the coach in round 1 2026?
Yeah, Vossi's contracted until the end of 26. That doesn't change. I think what we're trying to do here is, as I said then, is really focus on the next 8 weeks, get ourselves into the very best possible position, addressing things that we need to address, and then that gets us into the end of the season where we can, in a really calm and measured way, make decisions if we need to make them then. But, you know, we're focused on the next 8 weeks, and Vossi's our coach.
So the next 8 weeks is their focus, and already Graham Wright, even before that official move on August 15, has been in charge of this footy club. We just remind people what he did when he got to Collingwood in early January 2021 and made some significant changes before appointing Craig McRae as coach. Had tried to get Sam Mitchell across from Hawthorn, who then was a senior assistant coach. That changed that whole club's process. And then what he did quite significantly was surround the new coach with senior football people. And this is the sort of situation that we expect now, Jimmy, to be unfolding at the Carlton Football Club. I just want to ask you, with the now out of a job Ken Hinkley, someone you do know well and once were coached with at Geelong Footy Club, is he the type of person that would suit Michael Voss going into these last year as coach of Carlton?
Well, clearly he's got the relationship with him with his Michael Voss's long tenure at Port Adelaide, where he served under Ken Hinkley. And yeah, you did highlight that last line there. One of the great things that Graham Wright did for Craig McRae is surround him with some really experienced people who had senior coaching experience, of course, Brendan Bolton and Justin Lepage, and the style of football that Ken Hinkley likes to play. He would certainly have an impact on trying to shift Carlton to that style with a bit more pace and dare, because I think we all acknowledge Carlton play a pretty tough, contested, grinding style, which is admirable, but the game is moving to speed on the outside, and that's what Ken Hinkley likes. And
have they actually got the personnel to do that, though, Jimmy?
Until you play it, you've got to work it out. If you're putting all your eggs in this basket, you can only see them play in that way. So until you actually explore it, all right, can we put pace on the game, you'll find out whether those players can play that way, or you're going back in the market, whether that be draft, trade or free agency. But then, yeah, I think you'll look to fill out the team, not just make 1 or 2 decisions.
Yeah, watching Tom De Koning, I feel the pressure's got to him of this contract, and if he was staying at Carlton, you'd love to see him sign it soon, just to let himself settle into his form. You look at those numbers, his drop off in disposals, clearance, and more impact. It's all with the eyes. And I came back to when he first grabbed me, when he went after his brother. There was a game where I thought, how aggressive was he towards? And he had a real confidence and aura about himself. So it was the last few weeks, I think he's lost that bit. You know, Tristan Sherry, I understand, Cal, because of the size of him, but on the weekend, this was Byzantini. Guys like that,
and there is an expectation now that he's on the way out, that he will get to St Kilda on that $12 million deal.
Is there any way he stays, Cal? I mean, you're across him and this space better than anyone.
I don't think there is at this point. I think if you're staying, then he would have made that decision now. He's got $7.5 million on the table from Carlton. He hasn't accepted that. I think their form is also making it easier potentially to make the move to St Kilda, which, who knows, might have a brighter future over the next few years in and of itself. But he's not the only player with the question marks over his future at the Carlton Footy Club. It's the big three, isn't it? It's Walsh, Curnow, Mackay. Now, I don't think they move on Charlie Curnow this year. I think, speaking to clubs around this, though, that they'll be much more movable on Harry Mackay if the taker there is there and there's a suitor with a relevant price for him. Sam Walsh is a different scenario because he's got 1 year to go before he hits free agency, but he's in absolutely no rush to get into his free agency call, and Geelong is already making waves around getting him back to their area.
So, Kel, you hear who could be leaving Carlton, but have you got any idea of potentially who they could bring in from another club?
Well, I don't think they're in that market at the moment. I think they're in the stage where they use what pick they have out of the Tom De Koning compensation, which at the moment would be pick 9, to go and potentially go to the draft and then grab a father-son later on. They've got Harry Dean, the father-son prospect, who's looking a good player out of their key position stocks there. But I don't think they're in the market right now to be going and targeting players at that top end. They have a tight salary cap too.
One club benefiting from Carlton's doldrums is the Melbourne Football Club, because some focus has been taken away from its ordinary form. Lordo, you were really critical of what they dished up in the first quarter against the Gold Coast Suns on the weekend. Yeah,
they're in freefall, Melbourne, and they had a little bit of a run, and this man can't do much more, Pickett, but there's not too many others. Dawn's a warrior, but this first quarter, it's just unbelievable. I just cannot believe that the cliff that they've fallen off in the last couple of years. So look at that score, 37-1, refused to lay a glove, uncontested marks left, right and centre. So they're a real watch, and I'm with you. Carlton has taken a lot of pressure off this club, they made some big statements. Jake Lever has gone out. Fritsch has gone out. Van Rooyen has gone out. But it doesn't seem to be shaking up things.
Would you let Bailey Fritsch go? So he's got a year to go on his contract. Clubs have looked at him over the last 6 or so months. He hasn't clearly been at the top of form of that 2021 premiership year. Has he got value on the market to move him out early and get a pick in? And all of these guys, so Jake Lever's got a couple of years to go on his contract, of course, because I Picker's just re-signed. Clayton Oliver's the big one, isn't he? And whether they can move him off the books. Again, if the taker's there. Geelong this time last year were in the market for a midfielder. Are they as desperate this time around? Now they've got Bailey Smith on board.
I'm not sure Fritsch, you'd get much for him, to be honest. Unless they just want him out for, whether they think they'd operate better without him, because he has got that nature where sometimes you ask, is he doing the right thing by the team? If they don't get anything, he's a good player, Bailey Fritsch, but I'm not sure he's been in the right space.
There is a player who would have some form of currency, Lordo. Maybe not as much as he had this time last year, or certainly not as much he had 2 years ago. But it's Christian Petracca, and again, you've been worried about his demise this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of junk numbers in our game, and I don't get caught up. You just look at your own eye, and I look at the AFL coaches' votes to try and put a measure on where Christian is at, and. Look at that. So there's 18 midfielders currently ahead of Christian Petracca. I've always rated him as a top 3 to 5 midfielder for what he has done for Melbourne. Been an absolute champion for the game and for Melbourne. But this is how far he has fallen.
And that is reflective.
That
of
is
your views.
reflective. I like it. And I just wonder whether there's been a lot of talk around revitalising that midfield. With the last 8 games, get some kids in there, but throw him back forward. And this is a game only last year. It was round 10 at the MCG. Christian Petracca kicked 5 goals and had 20 disposals. So
try it again.
Just try. Get him down there with Jake Melsham. I don't want to see Petty down there anymore. Players have been tried and they've just come and gone. I would love to see what he can do down there. Not permanent, but him and Pickett.
But they wouldn't let him walk last year. This year he's got 4 years to go on his contract. Would you let him go this time around if he was interested and wanting to move?
I think if he is wanting to go again, I don't think you stop someone a couple of years in a row.
And it was this time last year, Cal, that other clubs were made aware by Christian himself that he was keen.
Yeah, the first week of July. So we're nearly at that point, and obviously there was a lot going on in his own life in getting back from that horrible injury and at the Melbourne Footy Club as well. But it was around this time, as you say, that these murmurs started. And from there was a shutdown process. There was, do you look at it, do you not? There was only 3 clubs that were really in the mix last year. It was Carlton, Collingwood and Hawthorn. Maybe he has to broaden that if he's going to move this time around.
Would a club give a top 10 pick now? Or
I think they would in this year's draft, yeah, for the right club. But again, it's not a very strong draft. So do you actually do that this year and go for it if you're in that window? But I don't know if they will have a taker and if that fits his mood as well.
Tom Lynch for Richmond has been playing as a frustrated, angry, annoyed older man in that football context, and it bubbled over at the MCG yesterday against Jordan Bus, where this was an old-fashioned 1980s style round arm clubbing, Jimmy, which was being sent to the tribunal. Cal, take us through the matrix that got it there, and Jimmy, what will he get when he does face the tribunal?
Well, the matrix was obviously intentional contact and high contact and was graded as severe contact as well. So that's under that realm of being able to classify it under the potential of injury, potential to cause injury, and clearly that's gone straight to the tribunal. What are you expecting, Jim?
Well, I think we all need it to be more than actual football acts. So I don't think we'd all sit comfortably and think, well, Paul Curtis gets 3 weeks, Jackson Archer gets 3 weeks.
And Justin McInerney got 3 weeks.
Yep. And when we've got an action that is clearly not a football action, and I always reference that as you don't go to training and practice that. Look, people make the case for Tom Lynch, he was getting scragged and all that. You don't swing around in club bloke. So I think you have to be 1 week above those. So 4 weeks is probably where we're looking. It might be between 3 and 4. But again, it just highlights the fact that the matrix needs redoing. Because if you really actually marked it just on the matrix and didn't have the potential to cause, if we just took that element out, it actually equals a week.
Yeah.
So that just highlights the problem with the matrix.
One of the many issues Greg Swan is already going to be looking at. Adam Uze for the second time this year, once off here when it came to, off ground I should say, when it came to Noel Bolter. This week after that game was very defensive of his player, Tom Lynch, for that hit.
We're going to see clarification on the marking contest because it happens to him. He's such a big man and they do scrag him and he's feeling like he's getting held. No excuse with his response, but I can understand his frustration.
probably looking at some number of games without Lynch in your forward line now. Is Noah Bolter someone who probably has to stay down there against Geelong next week to help those younger key forwards?
Without Lynchy?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Just in all likelihood, it seems you'll probably be suspended for the incident with...
Oh, okay. I haven't seen the incident. I hope that's not the case.
I take him at face value. I do.
Do you?
I do. I think
they miss a lot of things, football coaches, during a game.
They can at times, but I think he's been so caught up in the game. Maybe I'm taking him at word for that one. Hey, Jimmy, what do you make of it? So we look at it. Presti's in the midfield. Taranto, Hopper. It's been a shocking last 3 weeks for them. You don't want to finish the next 8 like that because it's been disappointing.
No, I agree with you, Lloydie, and I actually sung their leaders' praise earlier in the year where, I thought that the work of Vlosten, who was well held by Michael Ennie, who moved forward, Prestia, Taranto, Hopper, where they need Bolter, they need, of course, Broad down back. They've all got to actually play towards their peak to give all these... They
needed Lynch.
They needed Lynch, but they need them all playing near their best. And I know a lot of them are coming towards the tail end of their career, but you just need them to constantly lift week in, week out. That's got to be their motivation to protect these younger players, to send the next Tigers generation into good times.
Plenty more to come on Footy Classified, including a disaster in Tasmania, North Melbourne's blunder down south. Double trouble. Freo's big man, Luke Jackson and Sam Darcy, put on a clinic in the final quarter against the Saints to silence some critics. And staying or going, St Kilda's CEO weighs in on the Nasiah Wanganeen-Millerer debate. And don't forget, straight after Classified tonight, it's live to Wimbledon. The most special tournament here is with us. Day one, live and exclusive on 9 and Stan Sport.
Storming through is Watson, takes a bounce. Lays it off by hand, thought he'd go alone for a moment. He might get it back, still might get it. Watson, what a goal this should be! The wizard, Bartel, casual. Gunston has got 5. Chol chases him, gets him. He can do mercurial things, this man. Have a look at Bartel, Chol, yes, Chol, look at me! You just think it's going to end up in a shot and goal, and when the Hawks are having shots at goal, they're kicking it from everywhere. Gunston shapes it. It's 7 for Gunston. But it's a massive win for the Hawks in Tasmania.
Welcome back to Footy Classified, and it was North Melbourne back to its old ways, Lordo, after a debacle against Hawthorn in Launceston on Saturday, and a much-scoped match coming up on Thursday night against the Western Bulldogs, which will mark their 100 years in the AFL system.
It's frustrating. We all so desperately just want to see consistency, and no one expects them to go there and beat Hawthorn, but you expect a better performance, and they have only won 2 games in a row, twice, since 2020. So that, to me, is a mentally fragile group. And they went down there. I'm looking at guys like, obviously they got the coach Clarkson, but Jai Simpkin, LDU, Larkey, Zerha, Parker, McDonald. There's enough there that you don't just, accept the pats on the back. Gee, what a win. We fell in against Carlton. To me, Cal, it's been gone on for too long that they can't put together 2 weeks in a row.
Post-game, Alistair Clarkson said it wasn't a step back. Do you agree?
Oh, it was for me. I don't.
It had to be, didn't it?
Well, there's one way to find out, and that is to perform on Thursday night, isn't it? And that's in doubt, given they've had a few injuries to come out of it. And one of the players unavailable from that game is George Wardlaw, Jimmy, who was concussed for effectively the 3rd time inside 12 months. He was concussed on the training track last year about this time on the footy calendar, and there was some delayed symptoms not long after that. But to have 3 concussion incidents inside the space of 12 months, it's an issue. I do recall you having to change ever so slightly the way you played footy from an early age, and Joel Selwood, a teammate of yours too, also did. Is it possible to do so, the way you see George Wardlaw play? It
is, but you've got to take each incident on its merit. Now, sometimes accidents can happen and you can't do much about it. Like football, as we always say, a 360-degree sport. You can get knocked in a marking contest or a spoil. So firstly, you've got to break down, how has he been concussed, in what sort of incident? And what happened with myself and even Joel Selwood and other teammates, it was a technique issue. So the way you approach the football and you go spend time on the bump bags, the way you turn your shoulder, you look after yourself, what we've actually been screaming out for players to do more of. So I think what they need to do, North Melbourne, is just review his technique, because he plays such a punishing style of football. I don't think we'll see him play 300, 350 games that we've seen other greats play, but he'll play an extremely tough high-level brand of 200 games, and that's what North Melbourne should be focusing on, because try and tell George Wardlaw to navigate his way through a game, I don't think that's in his nature.
Isn't his issue as well, though, that it's not just the concussions, it's because he suffered 3 hamstring injuries in his draft year. He's battled hamstring injuries throughout his whole career. So is it a power, managing your own power, knowing your own body?
Yeah, and that'll come with maturity. The way he approaches contests, how can he look after himself? And that's what they've got to go through. If they can adjust his technique, he can still be that physically punishing player at the contest, give the maximum impact. With the player, I think, across the AFL industry, we go, geez, we like watching that guy play. We just want to see him play 200 games.
Yep. Love what Luke Jackson did in the last quarter at Optus Stadium on Sunday night against St Kilda, and the way he combined with his teammate, rucking teammate in Sam Darcy, and just the past 6 weeks he's put together, which has coincided with the form of his own team. I think it's been competition best in that big man space, and he's starting to really, after 110 games of footy, come into his own. I think there's some theatre attached to bringing Darcy into that game in that moment when they were 14 points down.
I love these type of ruckmen who can do so much around the ground. So, Cal, I remember Shifter Sheehan talking about him and saying he can be a ruck rover. I do love him in the ruck, though, and he's adding this forward craft, which many thought he didn't have to his game. But Gawn's a special player, a generational sort of player, but after him, he'd be my next pick as well.
And these are the numbers to which we're referring. I mean, they are amongst the very best in the competition, and it has coincided with the surge of the Dockers from a relatively ordinary scoreline to one that now does put them well and truly into premiership calculations.
Yeah, and their midfield got touched up in the first 3 quarters, so it's for Freo, it's finding the balance of when you have Darcy as the ruckers, when you have Jackson the ruck. And we saw in the last quarter in particular when both of them were in there and they got a vital clearance, but then Jackson went forward because we're talking about forward craft. His forward craft is better than Darcy's and he's more likely to kick a goal. So we've only seen them play together for 32 games, and some of those games, one's gone off injured. So we just need to see more of it. Is it ruck, one forward? Is it both in at a centre bounce?
Cal, you were across everything in this space, and specifically the Luke Jackson situation, contracted long-term for the Dockers, but the lure and the pull and the communications he's had with Melbourne, what's the latest on that?
Which was all real at the start of the year. I mean, he drove that at different stages throughout the start of this season, but I think we can all but shut that down now. The Cozzy Pickett contract was probably the piece, wasn't it? It was linked, absolutely, it was linked, but he staying at Melbourne on a long-term deal shuts down, I think, any chance of Luke Jackson leaving there to join Melbourne. And through that conversation, Justin Longmuir is absolutely hell-bent on keeping these 2 rucks and doing what they did on the weekend. So he's one of the big trade dominoes I think we can wipe off the board. The other one that we have some updates on is Nasiah Wanganeen-Millero, because there's so much talk and speculation around what his future lays. And for me at the moment, there is more confidence at St Kilda that he's going to stay and potentially on a short-term deal. A 2-year deal would take him through to the end of 2027. It'd give him a chance to line up alongside the deal that Ross Lyon has as well at the Footy Club. He has a really tight relationship with Ross Lyon, but he's not fully decided on this just yet. So that's, I think, the feel and the sense. But absolutely, Adelaide, Port Adelaide, we know have been chasing so hard as well. So not fully locked in there just yet, but a decision to come over the next few weeks.
And there's hard negotiations and there's brokering and there's card playing. Yep. The CEO of the St Kilda Footy Club expressed as much on a recent podcast.
He just doesn't want any of the pressure. I think he's got a manager who, is probably doing his job and trying to milk it as much as he possibly can. Whatever we can do as a club, we're putting around him. Yeah. But at the same time, we don't want to pressure him into anything. He can take his time. We'll deal with his manager and just see where we get to. But there's no suggestion that he's heading out the door. We haven't certainly been approached by any other clubs looking to do trades or anything like that.
So they get De Koning in the ruck, and they've got Sinclair, Wanganeen-Millero and Alex Taru in their back line together. Suddenly, I'd go and watch St Kilda play next year with that. I wouldn't pay De Koning that much, mind you, but this was outstanding, what I saw on the weekend. Just the attack on the ball, the kamikaze nature that he played with, Cal. Yeah. I couldn't take my eyes off him.
It was so fun to watch, wasn't he? He did this all last year as well. This is what I like about the St Kilda build as well. It's been criticised a lot for the way they've gone about it. This was the pick that they could have sent to Port Adelaide for Dan Houston. Houston was open to going to St Kilda. Instead, they keep the pick. They draft a guy Yeah, they keep the pick, and this is also the Josh Battle pick too. So you one out, one in, and what a player he looks to be.
So he had 14 spoils. Is he a great intercept mark as well?
I think he ends up a forward. I think his talent will mean that he's up forward and kicking goals soon enough.
He's deceptively big, and he's part of that group that I've been talking about. There's 12 to 15 of them that they just have to keep together, keep re-signing them, keep extending them out, and then you'll have more big names go, hey, I want to come play with those group of players. And Turu's one of them. He's deceptively big as well and exciting. It looked like he got shot out of a cannon every time he went for the footy.
Coming up next on Footy Classified is the water cooler. Is Sam Darcy unstoppable? Jimmy and Lordo will lead that debate. Swan Dive, how the Swans can turn things around, and sustained success. Why Collingwood is set for a long stint at the top. That is all to come on Footy Classified.
Welcome back to Footy Classified. And the water cooler tonight centres around Sam Darcy, and I think the competition can learn from each other and what teams do to him, and they'd all be asking the question, how do you stop this guy? And I thought Sydney tried a number of things the other night, and I reckon it's just going to build as it goes on because he's the hottest prospect in the game. So,
did that aspect work?
So I don't think that does. No. So he had 2 marks for the game. So this is the triple team aspect. So rough him up, triple team. So this is, look at the midfield. That's Errol Gordon that's looking to get in front of him. So leave your man just to get in the way, stop his run at the ball. And then it's body, so even Blakey. So he's looking, I'll leave Norton, and that helped Norton the other night to get across. So it's no rocket science here, but can you bump and get him, even it's half a tunnel. So tunnel him under the ball, leave your man. So they're the 3 aspects. Can you get inside his head? How can you get him under the footy? So I'd say to Sam Darcy, back the other way, don't always play in front. Even get behind your opponent so they don't tunnel you under the ball. Can you get in behind them? So if he wants to keep leading and pressing up the ball, they're just going to keep pressing him under the footy. So they've got to help him, the Western Bulldogs, because I think a lot's going to be thrown at him in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Was it the first time, Jimmy, we've seen a concerted effort to try and stop him? Because we hadn't seen it much before, at the very least.
No, I don't think they've really gone to work as a group. I think individuals have tried to work him off the line and they've realised how big he is, and he still has that capability by himself. But Lordo's right. The very first centre bounce, Tim English hits him. But if you have a look, they have another kick about a minute or 2 later, and everyone just pulled over to his side of the inside forward 50. And it's almost like saying, don't get beaten by what you know, force someone else to beat you.
Is that where Aaron Norton comes into it as well, Lloydie? Because he had a really good game on the weekend. Hasn't been in great form this year, but when Darcy's back, he's been better.
Yeah, there's no doubt it's made a big difference for him. And I think Thilthorpe's the other one who I'm going to talk about a bit later on. I think between Darcy and Thilthorpe, to me, they're the biggest weapons in the game. You've got Jeremy Cameron, who's more your running type, but I just wonder, you can't stop him one-on-one. Or Thilthorpe, yeah.
And the team that tried to bring down Darcy on the weekend is one that could use a key forward. Leon Cameron, the footy boss of the Swans, spoke about that on 3AW.
I mean, every club's got to look at everything. I mean, especially us. I mean, you know, we're sitting 6 and 8, coming off a really good home and away season last year and a good final series up until the grand final, and we're consistently looking at ways to play finals. I'd be disappointed if our list manager, led by Chris Keane, and our recruiting department are not looking at all options, because we have to improve our list regardless each year. If you don't, you get left behind.
And Jamara Ugle-Hagan is clearly one of the players that they will look at and to see if he fits the mould for them. Harry Mackay's name has been linked as well. The player that I'd be targeting if I was them is Mitch Lewis. So he's just coming back from his ACL, came back in the VFL over the weekend. Look, there is a role for him at Hawthorn, clearly, because Jack Gunston is turning 34, but he's still coming at the back end of his career. If I'm Sydney, I'm going for Mitch Lewis. He's got a year to run his contract, saying, you come here and be our guy for the next 5 to 6 years, be our number one, because clearly that's the spot that they need to fill.
I like it, Cal, because watching them, I think they next year can bounce back pretty hard. Watching the last few weeks with their full team, they excite me for the run home. How many teams can they upset? They're not going to play finals, but I think it's been a dull season, if I'm being honest. Like, we've got the top 9, bottom 9, not many games, that are exciting. There's no upsets on the weekend. I don't think there'll be too many top teams that drop. So they're the ones that can really upset the top 8 and make a big play next year.
And they probably get a pick in before their first academy boy too, in Max King, who starred for the Allies on Sunday as part of the Under-18 Championships. Interestingly, Dean Cox and Leon Cameron, who we just heard from, flew down from Sydney to watch the game yesterday. So he's a top talent, a key forward who takes a lot of big marks. So someone in the Taroom mould, to be honest. So that's someone that they can have on their sights on for next year.
I'm with Cal, though. Unless they get somebody of note, I think they're continually wasting their time in terms of going on and winning a premiership.
Yeah, the forward line's just not working, is it, with injury and lack of form with those 3 players they've got. Collingwood, Lordo, it's a rare luxury to be 10 premiership points clear at this late stage of a season, and just to study what they've done since Craig McRae's got there and just before him, the add-on players that they've added. Now, we know that he doesn't like to go to the draft, and it's worked so successfully with him, but as we take a look at what he has done in the relatively short period of time there are so many names on that footy club that were not from the draft from a Collingwood perspective.
Yeah, and this is identifying for need as well. So you can bring players in just to thicken the soup, as they say, but all these players play quite a considerable role, and these are starting 22, 23. Of course, Tom Mitchell's had his injury concerns, but a lot of these players have played a lot of footy at AFL level, and you look at them, you can nearly fill out a complete side there as well, and then actually hitting the VFL as well with some mature prospects who can come in and have an impact as well. You throw in some father sons and some astute selections at the draft. It's a very well built list.
And the tense conversation between the recruiting bosses, the list managers and the coaches, and Craig McRae's very open about what he wants each time the player exchange period comes around.
Yeah, I'm a coach that wants to bring players in. And now I said that at the end of the season. Now it's hard. It's such a hard market, fishing from the same pond. But I don't want picks. Okay, I say to the list management committee, I don't want picks on players.
Yeah, easier said than done. I mean, there's a tipping point to that, though, because their first pick this year is number 36. I mean, how many times in a row, years in a row, can you do that? Look, they are tight from a salary cap perspective. I think if Matt Rowell had said, I want to come, that they would have made it happen. But in the end, it's going to be difficult for them to get a deal done. So Braden Maynard's recent deal is back-ended. That's meant you're moving cash around. Darcy Cameron is still looking for a longer-term deal. He's got next year already at the footy club, but clubs are circling for him really hard, and he deserves to be paid more, and at the moment isn't.
The discussion a few weeks ago, of course, everyone linked Matt Rowell to Collingwood because the word being in AFL circles that Collingwood had already gone down the path of landing someone from Gold Coast. Are they still in the market from somebody else up there?
I think he was the one. He was the one, and next year they'll have a crack at banking. I'm absolutely sure about that. As a free agent, though, when you don't have to worry about your trade collateral, but the level that the senior players have played this year has changed their plan significantly. So they're going to go on with them instead of going to the trade market as much.
Yep. And then, Cal, last line on Footy Furnace, you mooted the likelihood that Miles Bergman would stay at Port and confirmed that today on afl.com.au.
Yeah, this is massive in the scheme of the trade period this year. He had 5 clubs going really hard at him, the Western Bulldogs, Melbourne, Essendon among them, St Kilda, of course, as well. But as we revealed today on afl.com.au, he's set to sign a new 2-year deal at Port Adelaide, a very lucrative deal as well. But he had toyed with this over a number of months. Just in recent days decided that Port Adelaide was the place to be for him. And Lloydie playing the midfield too, I think, has been a big part of his decision to stay. He gets on well with Ken Hinkley. He gets on well with Josh Carr. He can see a really stable role for him there in that midfield.
Would he have signed on for $1 million?
Oh, he's a $1 million player now.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, he's in that category and he'd be one of the best paid players in the competition.
Who's the biggest name then to change clubs, you think, at the end of the year?
Well, TDK will be the one, won't he? And the watch is clearly still on Nasiah Wagner-Miller until he actually signs. And I've still got an eye on what Harley Reid does. I think until he actually signs on beyond this season, the clubs will keep knocking because the list of players that are out there and gettable is shortening.
Still to come on Footy Classified, my favourite segment, it's Lordo's The Sledgehammer, plus Good Call, Bad Call, The Closing Cook and plenty more.
When you're low on confidence, your talk has to ramp up, and Carlton, you could just see how low they were on Thursday night. When this ball goes up, one's got to stay down. There's 3 of them, all spoiling the same ball. Willie Rioli, you leave him at ground level, he'll just make you pay. So that's where it's got to step up for Carlton. Talk about panic, dump kicks, I hate them in the game. So that's either got to go out to the boundary or you've got to somehow use your hands. You can't kick it down through the corridor. These all result in game goals to the opposition. That's Williams at a critical time. Houston just went bang after that. And big Rowan Marshall, again, cannot hack the ball out of defence. I love what the Suns did. Their high half forwards, Flanders takes up Salem. Then Buderick brings up young Lindsay. And then it's the toughest role in football. But once you win the footy, you go off to the races, spin yourself back out. He goes on and kicks a wonderful goal for his club. Does Buderick there for the Gold Coast Suns. That was a magnificent goal. North, this is when you're not going too well. McDonald just bombs it straight down the line. You've got to get off the line to the 45s. Hawthorn, the moment they win it back, they showed North Melbourne how to play footy. Off the line to the open side of the ground where North were sort of half asleep, and Watson goes in and kicks an open goal. With Broad here, he's got support in front. I don't know why you'd let Rankin out the back of you. I'd have him tucked in, hemmed in, not letting him get out the back of me. Broad, next time around, I'd play him from behind. And Dan Curtin, what a player he's become. So to be 6'6" and to be able to run like the wind and use it like this, what a weapon they've got at their disposal. That was one. Watch this bit of play. So his best was 16 disposals. He had 26, 2 goals, 8 marks. He's a player you can build your club around for the next 10 years, along with so many others. So wonderful player he's been, and that's why so many clubs wanted him, and the West Australian clubs, Cal, would have done anything to get a hold of him. Continues to be the best analysis segment in football TV, Jimmy.
Sledgehammer? Must-view TV.
Hey, Cal, conveniently the AFL scheduled a conference on the Gold Coast.
Yes.
Going to take the CEOs through a 2-day briefing of all sorts of agenda items, and the academies are going to be a hot topic, particularly from the St Kilda Football Club perspective.
I'm expecting this gets fiery tomorrow night. I'm expecting a lot of discussion around this over the course of Tuesday in particular. So they're going to go through the NGA review that's been ongoing as well. That'll go to commission in August, but the clubs want an update on that. But mainly it's going to be the discussion around the Northern Academies. We see some of the Northern Academy products here, but the AFL, in my expectation, will reinforce that Northern Academies are not going anywhere, despite St Kilda's submission to the commission. So I expect the Saints to continue that crusade, though, over tomorrow's meeting. I think Gold Coast in particular, as well as other northern clubs, will strongly push back on this. So GWS even wants to go a step further, Jimmy, and maybe you can speak to this after your time there, but they don't want to be able to match bids on players out of the Western Sydney region. They want to get those guys for free and not have to match bids at all. And I think it's probably a fair point given the lack and the scarcity of those guys.
Yeah, and that's the point, Kel, you're going with it. The lack of talent coming through those western suburbs where we're highlighted, that's the new frontier to try and get AFL hearts and minds, for want of a better term, that can you have a few years where you grab a few, you stick them on the list and you actually show other young kids there's a clear pathway with AFL football instead of rugby league or any other sports. And yeah, there's a very limited amount of people actually playing AFL football out there. And can this, I guess, spike the interest?
Yeah. Where will Jeff White's son pick, you think?
Well, I think he picks Melbourne. I think that'd be the favourite at the moment. Kalani White has the choice between Gold Coast, the academy, where he's spent a lot of time living up in Queensland, or Melbourne as a father-son. I'd have Melbourne as the favourite at this point.
Plenty more to come on Footy Classified, including good call, bad call, Lordos closing Cook, and then next Wednesday. I and many, many others cannot wait for this. It's the NRL State of Origin Decider, live and exclusive on 9.
State of Origin, only on 9 and 9 now.
Welcome back to Footy Classified. There's a change in the overall lineup, but not in the bowling order when it comes to good call, bad call. You've got the new pill, Jimmy. It takes more than a dislocated finger to stop Tom Papley. Good call, bad call.
Let's take a look at the footage from Friday night. Tom Papley, the fire starter here, angry, aggressive, not happy with the umpire's decision, not unusual. Oh, hang on a minute. Oh, me finger. Look at him, he goes off and he gets that pop back in and comes back, but not quite enough to get the Swans over the line. Good call.
Damo, good call, bad call. Yesterday at the MCG gave flashbacks to a former Richmond icon and hot head.
I think you're referring to one of my favourites. Let's take a look at Tom Lynch, though, because he was losing control and it boiled over and he hit Jordan Barts and he was arguing with everyone, including umpires and everyone else. But there's a way to do it. And if you go back to the 1980s, look, BT, this is the way to really be theatrical about it and just make your point better known and in a better way than Tom Lynch. The fist, Jimmy, I love that fist.
Cal, Dante Vicentini's dad has a golf trip booked for this weekend. Good call, bad call. But before your answer, let's take a listen to Dante and his dad and BT over the weekend.
You got your fingers crossed? Can I ask you the question?
Yes, gone.
Is he in trouble?
With the bump. We probably can't talk too much about that, can we, Dante?
I wouldn't mind that, Brian.
I think Paul Vicentini has something lined up for this weekend, doesn't he? He's ready to get away. Or maybe he's going to watch Vigo play.
Yeah.
He's busy, man.
Hey, Lloydie, we're massive fans of Riley Thilthorpe. I know you are. Big contested marking beast. Is he in line for an All-Australian Guernsey? Or Blazer, sorry?
It's a not quite call, Jimmy. So I reckon he's still in the mix, but I'd say Jeremy Cameron, Jesse Hogan and Georgiades are just probably the three just in front of him, but he's pushing hard with the number of bags of 5 goals this year in Riley Thilthorpe.
Cal, back to you. Friday night further highlighted Sydney's need for a marking forward. Good call, bad call.
Good call, Damo. Very good call. Let's take a look at the footage. This wasn't Riley Thilthorpe hands. Bang. Gets her. She's happy with it. And nonetheless, Louis Melican gets the apology. Slips right through the fingers. Seen better catches in the SCG before, but that wasn't one of the best there. No, need to keep forward.
Hey, Damo, the AFL has finally fixed the fixture. Good call, bad call.
It's a good call because bringing forward the Sunday games, Jimmy, from 3:20 starts to 3:15 starts, it's allowing the Channel 7 news to start at 6 p.m. So of all the problems in the game, the 5-minute bringing forward, that is a good call by you.
Jimmy, after a tough couple of months, this is a final nail in the coffin of Carlton season. Good call, bad call.
I think you might be referring to Jay-Z's top 50, which has become a must-read, and he's highlighted Carlton's biggest stars have fallen off the cliff, and some rankings could be damning. Patrick Cripps, Curnow and Wiedering are on the outside looking in Jay-Z's top 50. It's maybe just an okay call from you, Lloydie.
Okay, Lloydie, last one to finish us off. Good call, bad call. Boomer Harvey's not ready to relinquish his games record title just yet.
Good call. You don't miss a thing call, Cal. You do not miss a thing.
Watch
So he's joined a club called Trentham where they've got this big gun. They've got a gun forward by the name of James Regan. He kicked 9. But I'm just wondering if Boomer Harvey is thinking Pendles is about to break my record. Could I get back and play again?
He's in good nick.
He is in good nick. Look at big number 5.
Oh, yeah.
Strapping young man. But Boomer might want to come back.
Yeah, there's still your closing cook to come right after this, Lauder. Who have you got in the gun today as a way of...
I was looking to nail the panellists
young
in, but I couldn't do it.
No, he's been too good.
He's a great bomber man.
That to come on Footy Classified, and then Wimbledon. Welcome back to Footy Classified. We never know how this show ends each Monday night because Lordo has got this.
Thanks, Damo. I've never been one to cook umpires, but I'm going to break my own rule tonight. And because the poor bloke, he had this story for the rest of his life to say, I sat on Travis Cloke's shoulders and watched the umpire. First of all, he said, knee on head, and then he taps the back of his head. So how sad would that be if that rule? What about the poor bloke? He can't believe he's lost his great moment. Even Trav felt flat, patting him on the back.
Not that flat, he's got to kick a goal.
I know, he got a goal out of it. But I love cricket, and Jimmy, you love your cricket as well. And gave me an excuse to show some of my favourite umpires getting involved where they... This is 1986, the second drawn test of that umpire.
He went up with the field.
Didn't he want to be part of history, that guy?
Make contact the outside off.
Yeah, but my favourite ever one was this one where the umpire halfway through went to give out and then he thought this is a wrong decision and then screwed that one is my all-time favourite. So I've got another good shot. He said, no, I was never giving it. I was just giving my nose a little bit of a scratch. Watch this. Yeah, that is my favourite of all time. So that's all I wanted to get in tonight.
At least it wasn't one of us on the panel.
No, I spared him.
A big Thursday night for the Roos, Jimmy. They need to respond, don't they, after last week?
Yeah, absolutely, Damo. I think we're all pretty optimistic where the Kangaroos are heading. We just need to see those quarters and results keep mounting to what the previous 6 weeks were, not last week.
Yep. Kel, thanks for joining us last night on Footy Furnace and again on Footy Classified. We'll hope to see you throughout the year. Jimmy, thank you to you and to you, Matty Lloyd. And